So thank you very much, Professor Urbanek. At the very beginning, I would like to thank you for the privilege to be here and to have my presentation. Especially, I would like to thank Professor Urbanek, who is one of the leaders on corporate governance field in Poland. And as for my subject, together with my colleague Aleksandra Wąsowska, we came to the point that the most fascinating thing about corporate governance is not only what we see. It's depending on the perspective. It's what is behind or what is between the lines. It is important that in origin I'm a lawyer, also practitioner. Aleksandra is a sociologist and psychologist, and we both met as a on the managerial studies field. And we both came to the same point. And I appreciate the sequence of our lectures that was organized by Professor Urbanek. Professor Jerzemowska was the first one. She was talking about the models. And right now, I would like to tell you about the framework of analyzing these models, which we propose together with Aleksandra Wąsowska. So, traditionally, I will start from the definition of corporate governance. There are many definitions, but the one that is, generally used is the OECD definition. And as you can see, corporate governance consists of the structures within which is decided what is the aim of the company, how this aim is achieved, and how it is monitored. But also, corporate governance consists of the people and relations among them. From the institutional point of view, this model, both the structures and the relationships, are shaped by the institutions. And these institutions, according to Scott, may be divided into the regulative, normative, and cognitive. What it means? Regulatory pillar. Regulatory pillar is something that is analyzed most often in the literature. It is the regulation, but also good practices. Normative pillar. Normative pillar are the shared norms and values shared by the communities, shared by the societies. Professor Jerzemowska was talking a little bit about it, that the models differ from each other. Of course, that they differ. Let's have a very simple example. In Poland, we implemented companies code, commercial companies code, that is based on the German one. But in practice, it doesn't work the same. The rules are maybe not the same, but pretty much the same. They are very similar. But the way the law in force is acting is not the same. And the third pillar is the most subjective, I would say. I would say that this pillar constitutes the lenses through which each of us see the world and see the institutions within the corporate governance. What I think about my boss, if he should be authority for me, or he's just a little bit higher than me in the hierarchy. My subjective lenses. And each of us may have his or her own lenses. And all these pillars, normative, maybe regulatory, normative, cognitive, then they interact with each other. Because what is the regulation? Who decides about the regulation? In the democracy, parliament. Whom is representing parliament? Society. Society is influenced by the norms that lives within this society. And moreover, these norms are influenced by each of us, by our cognitive pillar. And on the other hand, the way we understand and we use the regulation depends on the norms, as with this commercial code in Poland and Germany. And sometimes depends also on our own interpretation of the law. And that causes troubles. And that's why the lawyers are sometimes needed. So, summing up this part, the corporate governance is the, I would say, living organism, living complex of interplay between informal and formal institutions. So, but I started with the sentence that what fascinates us most are these informal institutions, what is between the lines or behind the official structures. So, what are these informal institutions? They are socially shared rules, usually unwritten. Sometimes they as I told you, sometimes they may influence the regulations as well, so sometimes they may be written as well, that are created outside of the official sanction channels. So, something that everybody knows that exists, but it's difficult to say why it exists, who came up with these ideas, why we share these ideas, and moreover, these institutions, these informal institutions, they generate shared expectations. So we expect as the society, in Japan, in Poland, maybe in a different way, what will be the result of the regulations. And that's why maybe the same regulation may have different results in Poland, in Germany, in Japan, or maybe the same regulation may be interpreted not in the same way by the individuals, by each of us. So, what is the role of these informal institutions? If we assume that corporate governance is a complex interplay between formal and informal institutions, so the question is how they influence formal institutions. And there are many theories. We use Grzymawa-Buse assumptions here. We think that there are other theories on this way, there are other scholars. We use these Grzymawa-Buse's ideas, and she divides the roles of the informal institutions into four. The first one is they replace formal institutions. In what way they replace? For instance, they may be used as the templates for formal institutions. I have many examples, but I use one example, corporate governance example from Poland. In Poland, according to our commercial companies code, the president of the management board, in Anglo-Saxon terms CEO, has no additional rights than other members of the management board. According to the commercial code, no other additional extra rights. But the tradition or informal which is informal institution in this way is that usually this person authority should be stronger than the authority of the others. And this informal institution, this tradition of seeing, of understanding the position of the CEO influence the formal rules. And that's why quite often in Poland our joint stock companies has in their status special rights for the CEOs. in status, not only in the commercial codes. Replacing means also substituting. There are also many examples, but I give you one that is, I would say, very up to date. Not in corporate governance, but general. Very important thing right now in Poland and in Warsaw is reprivatization. Isn't it as though that the problem with reprivatization is that informal ways of property law enforcement replaced the formal law? Isn't it as though that the problem here is that the beneficiaries of apartments, of lands in Warsaw, in other cities also, but mainly in Warsaw, the beneficiaries are lawyers, not the families of the people who own the apartments and the lands? It's because the reason of it, maybe there are other reasons, for sure, there are many legal reasons, for sure, but one of the reasons is not the regulation itself, is the way the regulation is being enforced. Undermining, the second role of informal institutions. They undermine formal institutions. Also, many examples. Let's take one. The redistribution of state assets. Maybe sometimes it's more important to know somebody, to know the politician. Maybe it's more important than to follow public procurement regulations. It's not that often right now in Poland, but generally. There are many cases analyzed in the literature in our region, not only in Poland, in Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, that prove that it used to be as though, especially in the 90s, that the redistribution of state assets wasn't formal. It was undermined by informal institutions on many levels, in many ways. Informal institutions may also support formal institutions. In what way? Let's take the transfer of the information within the company. We have some CEOs here. If the information about the company they got from the formal channels based on the procedures, or maybe they know as the CEOs with whom they should talk within the company to find out what's the reality in one or the other department. Informal institution is not undermining, not replacing, is supporting the formal one. And in the end, I would say that competition or competitive role, maybe the name is not exactly correct, I would say, because it's second order role. Because in this way, informal institutions help to structure a light competition, which is very important in a democracy, which is very important in the company as well. So let's say that we are governing party. So we know that that we have not only formal power, but also informal power, because we have information, because we know many people, because many people would like to talk to us, would like something from us, and we realize that is as though. But on the other hand, we realize that maybe we will lose the next election. And we realize that it may be dangerous for us when the winners, the parties that will govern after the election, we use this informal institution against us. So maybe it's better to form formal institutions out of these informal institutions. Maybe it is better to have better procurement, public procurement law. Maybe it is better to formalize the redistribution of state assets. Maybe it is better to formalize the way the decisions are taken in the ministries. Maybe it's better to formalize the way the information is transferred between politicians and business. So, after analyzing Scott's model and Grzymała-Buze's model, we decided to propose our framework of corporate governance analysis. It looks complicated, but it's not. Assuming that we understand Scott's division and Grzymała-Buze's division, it's nothing special, I would say. But this kind of analyzing is quite new in corporate governance. So we have institutions here. We have formal governance mechanisms, regulations, also good practices. We have these normative and cognitive institutions. I gave a few examples. For instance, generalized trust. The way the society thinks about trust. What's that society attitudes to trust in the society? I really like the story of Fujitsu CEO. I was in Japan last year too. I spent 2 weeks in Japan at the conference, and then I was traveling a bit. And I have a few stories like this. I tell you one, maybe it's not the story, but it's about the procedure. When I was traveling, on my arrival to the hotels, I paid by cash. From some reason, I paid by cash. And I never got the receipt that I paid. I got the invoice in the end. And it was some for Paul, for the tourist from Poland, or professor from Poland. It was extraordinary for me that I don't have the proof that I paid. They have just paid. And I asked my Japanese friend, the professor from Tokyo, and I asked him, why this though? And he told me, Igor, if you pay, you pay. Everybody knows that. Why you need the receipt? Why you need to prove it? You pay. And that's it. He even didn't, and I would say that at the beginning he even didn't understand my question. And that's informal institution that influence not only society, but it may influence corporate governance too, together with other institutions. I know that my time is almost out, but I'm finishing. And we have these informal governance mechanisms as well. They influence formal, informal institutions. They influence each other, and at the very end, I've got a few examples. There are many others. For instance, party patronage. It influences, as I told, it influences redistribution of state assets, but not only. It influences the structure of the management and supervisory boards of the companies where the state is made not only the one, but the major shareholder. Of course, it influences. You see, not only in Poland, in other countries too, this carousel of carousel of appointments after the election. Of course, not only in Poland. In United States, even when the state influence, you can see the carousel of appointments. We can see clientelism, cronyism, pressure, but also pressure from public opinion. That as the politician, you have informal power, but you have to consider that you are controlled by the society. And in the end, I would like to say that I hope for this control. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now it's time for questions, comments. Okay? No. Wait a moment. Okay, could you ask your question? Could you use your microphone?
Actually, about this presentation, and there's one, you mentioned the informal institution will replace formal institution or support the formal institution, and it's very interesting. And actually, about what you said, and I believe the morality and the culture, and especially the leaders, and the leader will have a big influences of the whole company and the team. And actually in the psychology, and there's one effect, it's called diffusion of responsibility. And for example, in one team, if there's only one person and did something, actually their thing is not big, but it will affect the team, it will big thing. But if everybody did a little thing, and did a small thing, and it's not big, but it will affect this team, and this is called the diffusion of responsibility. So actually in every team, I think it will have this problem. So if we have this kind of problem, and if you as this leader, and you have to do it, because I think from one side, it's also one part of the informal institution things.
Mm-hmm. So you'd like me to comment on it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, for everybody, they will have one effect of infusion of responsibility. Mm-hmm. In psychology, and actually, in every team, they will have this kind of how to say, culture or morality, and I mean the environment, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, as you said, I mean, from these whole things, and we will mission to our morality or culture or leaders' influence. So, and there's one question, and if in this team, and you know, and you have this environment diffusion of responsibility, and it will affect this whole team or this company, but you have to manage it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's not so easy to manage it because everybody just did some little things. It's not a big problem, but it's not everybody did it. Mm-hmm. But you have managed it, so what do you do?
Okay, so my answer is more general, because my cognitive pillar says me that managerial study is not about the answers about the ideal world, about utopia. The thing is to realize what is your goal, and to follow this goal, and to realize what influence you, like on this picture. So once you realize that there are many things that influence you as a leader in a team, not only your opinion, not only what one or two people's opinion, but other things. On one hand, it's becoming complicated, but on the other, it gives you the tool to be professional, but not the answer how to be ideal. It's impossible to be ideal. And that's what I find fascinating in managerial studies, that it's impossible to find the ideal world. The thing is to look for it.
Yes, actually I understand what you mean, but how to explain it? For example, because as the first professor said, and the people is the important factor in the component, right? And but for one people, and they have emotion, and they have feelings, and they not like a machine, so mm-hmm. they won't do something just according to the order. So actually, And I know, and you have to focus on the final goal, but actually, and in the company and in this team, and you have to, how to say it, because it will cost something. Because this effect will cost a lot of things. For example, and I'll give you one example, and for buyers, for some buyers, and if the company will give them some discounts, and they will choose this company, but they won't focus on the quality or the efficiency or the product, because they will focus on the discount and because they will give them some money. So like this kind of effect, but you have to manage it because it's a big problem. But the point is, if this only one person do it, and the other people won't do it. But it's like the informal role. This like informal role in this industry or in this company. So it's most of people will do this kind of thing.
Thank you very much. I think that you could continue your fascinating discussion during coffee break, okay?
Maybe I agree.
Oh,
yeah. So that's my answer.
So maybe one more question, a short one.
All right, very short one. Yeah, very short one. Thank you very much, Professor. So my question is, how effective or efficient is the corporate governance of adopting to informal or governmental institutions, not listed private companies?
You mean that we are Christians, yes?
Yes.
Oh, difficult question. I don't think I'm ready to ask, because our religion is only one of the factors that influence us. Moreover, and it may be to some point controversial, in my opinion, the way we see our society understand Christianity is not the same as in the Western Europe. It's not the same as in the United States. So religion is influenced by the culture, by social norms, and other way. I would say, but I try to answer. I would say that the way that, maybe not religion, but the way the church is organized in Poland is very hierarchical. So we can assume that Poles got used to hierarchy. Yes, according to Hofstede model, yes, we are quite hierarchical in comparison to the other nations, but not as hierarchical as Japanese that are based on the Confucianism or Chinese. So it's not simple answer because religion is one of the factors, but for sure it's worth research for sure.